Friends, hello, this is Frederick Henry, and this is another Frederick Henry podcast. I'm going to try to keep the podcast a little bit shorter because I think when they get long, it gets a little bit complicated. It's Monday, it's November the 9th, and we're still wondering who the next president is, although I have already stated that I believe it rightfully should be Donald Trump. However, I wonder if, when I was going out just a minute to take a short morning walk, I thought about the song from Kamala, One Bright Shining Moment. Have we just experienced, under the 4 years of Donald Trump, one brief shining moment that was known as Camelot? They wanted to say Kennedy was Camelot. Well, I would say Trump was Camelot. We had a great run of it. We had great stock market. We had great employment. You know all the numbers. It's all great stuff. Now we're looking at a Biden-Harris possibility. Now, let's just hypothetically say, for the sake of argument, that Harris and Biden, or Biden and Harris, you know, how I did it myself, Biden and Harris become president and vice president. We know that Joe Biden is not a well man. I've mentioned it before about Alzheimer's, what it does to you. Eventually, you become completely incompetent. We've seen plenty of evidence of that already. So we may have just elected or been forced to elect by fraud, perhaps, an incompetent, because the person behind him is a woman named Kamala Harris. Excuse me, that's such a name. Anyway, the point of it is it possible that this is fools playing against fools? In other words, you have the old guard in the Democrat Party, Schumer and Pelosi and the others, hanging on and clinging on to their little power base in the convinced idea, and we've seen Nancy Pelosi talk about that, that these younger people who are the radical left, communist, socialist wing of the Democrat Party, mainly females, that we can always control them, the Democrats are thinking, and that's, I'm just putting out a spin out of my head thinking, we can always control them. We can always control these little people that are insignificant people. But, you know, I'm looking at the freshman congresswoman from New York, and she has shot to prominence the four Muslim women from Minnesota, Milwaukee, whatever these places are, I don't care. They've shot to prominence. They're radical beyond radical, and they want to fundamentally change America from a republic democracy to a socialist state. Now, you know, Nancy will die, Chucky will die because they're not young, and they don't control everybody, and they obviously don't control these women. And so let's just hypothetically play out the game that Joe Biden finishes up his Alzheimer's in a year. He's either removed from office using Nancy Pelosi's commission or the 25th Amendment. Kamala Harris becomes president of the United States. And then the idea of the old guard, Chucky Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and company, is that they can control her. But you know, when Kamala becomes president, and she will, she's not going to be controlled. She's a smart, cunning woman. We know her history. She's a smart woman. She's a cunning woman. She's a sly woman. She knows how to use power. She has to use her own personal power. She knows how to deceive and do all kinds of things to people which are less than laudatory. And the idea that you give her the presidency of the United States when Joe Biden is removed or dies, which is either one, so that she becomes president of the United States, and all you have to do is control her. Nancy can control her, Chucky Schumer can control her, etc., etc. No way, Jose. She will put you out of business as sure as your name is Chucky Schumer or Nancy Pelosi. So then she will have free reign to do whatever she wants. And if AOC and the other, Ilhan Omar and all these people think they need Harris, they're mistaken, because she's going to put them out of business just as quickly. This is a woman who has successfully, although not popular, although never really won a primary, has risen from the ranks of nothing to potentially the vice presidency of the United States, and ultimately, in my opinion, the presidency, without really ever having the support of the people. And a person like that is going to make sure that she never needs the support of the people, that she is going to make sure that the Democrat scheme of voting fraud is carried out. Now, that's the big thing I want to say, is that if the Democrat leadership, the old guard, the 90-year-old, 80-year-old, whatever they are, people think they're going to control Kamala Harris and company, they have another thing coming. She's smarter than they are. And if Joe Biden thinks he's going to be able to rule the country in his senility, or they're going to be able to use him as a front, as a puppet, and speak, open your mouth, Joe, close your mouth, Joe, sign this, Joe, then go to bed, Joe, have your cocoa, Joe, and can I see my family now, Joe? If Obama thinks he's going to be the kingpin behind Biden, they all have one thing that they're not taking into consideration: Kamala. She is a sly person, cunning, and while she's playing the laughing fool right now, as soon as she assumes the powers of the presidency of the United States of America, she will make sure that all those people who thought they could use her and control her are done in one way or another. Okay, I'm going to stop there on that piece. I'm going to just go back to the voting fraud piece. And I learned something yesterday from reading an article about a person who said they're a professional. A professional was published by the New York Post about 2 years ago, that they are professional vote fraudsters. And he made a comment that the ballot does not have any identification. It doesn't have a special mark. It isn't watermarked. It doesn't have a special code to it. It doesn't have any kind of hidden under the red light secrets to it. It's just reproduce the thing on a Xerox copier and you're fine and good to go. And so is it possible, as part of the scheme, people have been talking about ballot harvesting, that in the midst of all this, there's two things that count: the envelope, the return envelope, which is coded and does have significant identification marks to it, and there's the ballot, which is nothing at all, just cannot be identified once it's separated from the return envelope. Is it possible that the governments of the 5 states or 6 states or wherever they were, that they plan this million, so you can't trace millions and millions and millions of pieces of mail? How are you going to trace that? So let's say, hypothetical here, it's completely my opinion, just playing a novelist here. You produce 100 million or 120 million or 130 million, doesn't matter, envelopes. You mail out 80 or 90. And you keep back 60 or 70 million envelopes so that you can use these envelopes to put in a photocopy of a ballot, fill it out. We have people who say that they went to the polls and they were told they had already voted. And they told the people why did not vote. And they said, yes, you mailed in your ballot, we have it here. So that means the envelope, the person received an envelope in their home, and they burnt it, discarded it, tore it up, threw it in the garbage, didn't use it, but another envelope existed with their name, a duplicate envelope, which was registered as a bona fide ballot by the election commissioners. And then once the envelope is certified, they separate the ballot from the envelope, and you will never know what envelope and what ballot exists. You don't know. Once it's separated, they're put in different piles, different locations, and for the anonymity of the voter, for the anonymity, good logical reason, good legal reason, but still so easily misused. So if that's a possibility, that might be also something to consider. Anyway, at any rate, this writer, this author, this person, Fred Henry, believes that there was massive fraud. And one of the things I end up with here, and we have to watch this in the future, let's just hypothetically say that President Trump becomes ex-President Trump and goes back into private life, and takes a lesser role in politics, or maybe a greater role. Who knows? I hope it's a greater role, because he's a force to be reckoned with in American politics. We have to remember that it was never about Trump. I've said this from the very beginning. This whole anti-2016 movement was anti-you and anti-me. It had nothing to do with Trump. Trump was just they knew it. Trump was just the chosen one. We had been brewing under the no taxes already Tea Party, or tax enough already, TEA, taxes enough already brewing movement. But that movement was seized upon by certain Republican elements, and it was made into a political movement. And the people, and I attended many of those rallies, abandoned the Tea Party because it was just another standard establishment political piece, that we didn't want that. But that revolution, that political revolution, never went away. and I hope it will never go away. It's bigger now than it ever was. It got so big that eventually we were able to choose someone who agreed to become our leader, Donald John Trump, and we and he together put him into office against the shock and the ill will of the Democrat Party under Hillary Clinton, who considered us, you and me, deplorable, irredeemable rednecks, and under Obama, a Bible-clutching, a gun-toting redneck irresponsibles. So don't forget those names, folks. Those are names applied to you. And under Joe Biden, we were called chumps for Trump. Chumps for Trump. So you're a chump, irredeemable, irresponsible, deplorable, etc. All these things. And you still are, in their opinion. Don't think for 1 minute that you're not. But what may have happened, let's just say hypothetical here. What may have happened is a lot of people fooled themselves into believing it was all about Trump. Even our fellow citizens said, well, we're going to get this guy out. We're going to save the people who voted for him from their own foolishness. And we're going to save the people who voted for him the second time from their own irresponsibility and irredeemableness and their rednecks. We're going to save them from that. And once we're in power, we're going to save them from their guns by taking them away, save them from their Bibles by taking those away. They're already close to churches. You know that. They're already close to churches. They already put a gag on their mouth with that mask. A very effective gag is the mask. How many people talk to each other anymore? They're in the mask. How many people converse with each other at church or club or parties or dinner parties or even family gatherings? How many people even talk to each other? They don't, because they have a gag in their mouth. And now we hear from Biden's group that they want to encourage people to wear the gag or the mask inside the home for the COVID. It's not about the COVID. It's about getting people to be separated from each other, getting people to be afraid of each other. Remember the old saying in the Revolutionary War of 1776, united we stand, divided we fall. And you can bet that the 1776 project of Donald J. Trump into the schools to teach American history again will be removed entirely by the 1614 or whatever it is project, which teaches that America is bad, the Republic is bad, white people are bad, Christians are bad, everybody's bad, everybody is bad. Only the elite club of Democrat leaders are good, and only the academics in the colleges are good. And we must refuse to participate in that process. We must, if we can't do it openly rebel, then we must have passive resistance and refuse to allow it to happen to us. We can teach our own children at home. They gave us that possibility with virtual learning. We can teach our own. Virtual learning is going to go away. They're going to insist that you must send your children to the public schools because we're not getting enough indoctrination of these children. Okay, enough of that said. I'm going to get out of here. I have appointments today, but I want to thank you very much for the few minutes of your time you've given me. I want you to think about what I said and to please patronize. I don't get anything for this. I'm doing this on my own dime. I'm a private citizen. I'm just using my freedom of speech, as long as I still have it, to speak to you, my friends, through this podcast. And there are many of you listening. I thank you for that. And please share it with others. The Frederick Henry Podcast, The Frederick Henry Show. And also, my good friends, Black Conservative Patriot, a wonderful fellow. It's a great podcast on YouTube, Black Conservative Patriot. Another one, The Still Report, STILL, another great one on there for us to listen to. There's many others I just signal out. Dan Bongino, wonderful fellow. Dan Bongino, great. Parler, a good Parler, a good alternative to Twitter and Facebook. Then, of course, my favorites, as long as they're still around, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, these people, Shannon Breen, many of them are good people. Now, Adam Kinzinton, the congressman, collapsed and fell under his own weight to become nothing more than a toady and along with Romney, a person who betrayed his convictions for the Democrat narrative. We mustn't forget the names of those people who do that, Adam Kinzinton and Mitt Romney. These people are not our friends. They don't like us. They say, oh, it's about Trump, it's about Trump. It's not, please, one thing. Remember, it was never about Trump. It was always about you and always about me. And if it's true that this was a fraud